Welcome to the Spike Camp podcast. Spike Camp is a free online community for hunters that support conservation. It's a great place to share stories and your experience with other hunters. As a member of Spike Camp, you get access to all of our hunting live streams, discussion channels, contests, hunter resources, and events that we host. Membership to Spike Camp is free. Our only ask is that you are a member of a hunting or conservation group before you register. Head over to spikecamp.com to join us. This episode of the Spike Camp podcast is brought to you in part by Spartan Precision Equipment. Spartan Precision produces rifle and optic support systems that weigh less and do more. Born from backcountry hunting, their lightweight bipods and tripods aim to help you master your marksmanship. Visit javelinbipod.com to see their available products and learn more.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Very excited about tonight's guest. I've been using a Spartan Javelin bipod. This is mine. I bought it. I'm going to have to fact check this with Rob, but I think it was 2020.
Yeah, that's
when they first came out, right?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, so maybe 21 when I got mine. And I can't tell you how many animals I've taken off that bipod, but it's a lot. And I've shot a lot of steel, a lot of targets. Oh, excuse me, guys. Hang on. I'm alive.
You're back. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
It's funny you say about targets. Oh, sorry. Go on. Carry on.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say about targets because I've always promoted our products as hunting products, pure and simple, because that's what we do. That's our DNA. But I was recently in Australia with Naya Group, who's our distributor in Australia. And it was a pretty funny podcast, actually. It's worth listening to for anybody that wants out there if they like a good laugh. But they dropped me in the deep end and they said, before you get on this podcast, Gearing, you've got to do a 60-second competition. And I said, well, hang on a minute, what's this all about? They said, a shooting competition. So you've got to shoot 10 shots as quickly as you can and get the tightest grouping you can. And we'd make every podcaster do it. And they'd had a New Zealand SAS guy, they had some competitive shooters do it, blah, blah. So some pretty high league stuff. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a brilliant shot. I get the job done, but there's far better than me out there. So what they do is they give you a Springfield rifle off a bag and a loopholed optic. And I thought, well, that's pretty tidy setup. It's nice and you're nested in a bag. If you're going to zero a rifle, you use a bag. And I said, but I'm going to use a Javelin bipod because that's what we do. So let me use a Javelin bipod. And they did. And I won it. And I didn't win it just by a little bit. I won it by a long way. And I thought, well, that's quite a nice statement, actually, because I always say they're not really target bipods. They're hunting. Well, it absolutely worked brilliantly well. And I got the quickest and the best result. So I was pretty pleased about that, given I'm not a brilliant shooter. So, they work.
Well, they sure do. And, the system is, I always tell people, it's, people ask me, what's the one thing that's in your pack? Always. And it's this bipod. And it's just so easy. It's 5 ounces or 5.5 ounces, whatever it weighs. It fits in your pocket of your pants. You can put it in your pack. You can lose it if you're not careful. This might be my second one because I think I did lose one. Blake will laugh when he hears that because I lose everything unless it's painted orange. But at the end of the day, it's just a great product, and that was my first introduction to Spartan. And I've just sort of been, a fan of your stuff ever since, and I've been following along. And I'm just excited to have you guys on. And I think I've mentioned it on the platform that we brought you on in partnership with Spike Camp, and you're supporting our member rewards program with some gear. And I just want to thank you for that personally, because it's a big commitment for a brand to invest in something like Spike Camp, more or less a social media platform. But we have a lot of great members, and we give our gear out that we get from brands. And I'm excited to get your stuff into the hands of some of our folks here. And we also have it's surprising when you talk to people, and I talk to a lot of people are using your product here in Canada. So it's, sales must be brisk for you over here. And, I think it's great. So anyway, before we dive into it, what I'd like to do, we'll circle back to Spartan. But I think for the audience and the viewers that we have, it'd be interesting to hear Rob Gearing's background personally first, and then we'll jump into the business. So maybe you could tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, my history, I was probably a climber before I was a hunter. Any excuse to be outside in a wildlife sort of environment, be it climbing, fly fishing. I'm not a course fisherman, but I love my fly fishing. It's hunting with a rod as far as I'm concerned, or a rifle is simply an excuse for me to find myself in a great place, hopefully with some interesting people, or solitary. It doesn't really bother me, but I love the outdoor environment. From a young age, I was in aviation. I used to do a lot of work up in Canada with the Inuit. I used to do a lot of work with Air Inuit, Air Cree, Air Manitoba. So all those small little service airlines servicing the Northern Territories was sort of my happy place. And I was looking after engines, not aircraft per se. So it would get me into places like the Himalaya. I'd go to all of those interesting places. All my partners, my business partners, would all end up going to the Caribbean because the same engines were afraid down there in Mexico and do that.
Sure.
And I thought very little interest to go there, but somewhere there's a mountain to go and play on. That's my happy place. So I grew up sort of really having an absolute fascination and enjoyment and pleasure about finding remote parts of the world. And that's what this job has enabled me to do pretty effectively compared to most people. I've been really freaking lucky. But also, I'm passionate. I'm not a big guy, and I'm passionate about, if I take stuff in, it's got to be fit for purpose. And I used to take people hunting in the UK, and I got fed up with having a bipod stuck on the rifle. It used to really freak me out, actually, not because the bipod wasn't any good, it was a perfectly good tool, but I would only use it maybe one in every 8 to 10 times. And I had this bit of metal stuck on my rifle all the time, something that I would use so infrequently, but was a critical tool when I needed it. That wasn't the right place for me. That was, I thought, well, hang on a minute, I could do better than this. And in a previous life, we bought the nose of Concorde, serial number 6, which was a test nose of Concorde, actually. It was based at Farnborough. And that was simulating flight time of ours for the real plane. So it was always 2 times ahead of the actual real Concorde out there flying, just to check for cracks or faults or blah, blah, blah. Well, when they stopped flying Concorde, we bought that nose and turned it into a piece of art. Do a whole podcast on that. But basically, turn it into a piece of art. We mounted on a big steel, almost like a leaf. And underneath that leaf, we put an Olympus engine bearing, the Olympus engine being the engine that powered Concorde. And we used 2 clamshells with rare earth magnets to cover up the bearing. I've told this story a few times, and that's the end of my genius, basically, Chuck, because basically I saw those bearings and those rare earth magnets, and I said, make me a bipod that goes on my rifle with a magnet. Freaking, that's the way. And that was the beginning of Spartan. So it was a passionate thing. I'm very proud of what the Javelin is and what it represents. And I can say that without being cocky or arrogant, because there was a lot of good minds that built that and designed that product to what it is today. And you talk about Canada. We've done a shockingly bad job in servicing Canada, actually, and we're going to get better at that. And you're part of that, actually, Chuck, because we just finished with a distributor. Really nothing wrong with them, nothing wrong with us, but they didn't understand the product. They didn't understand the story. And the most effective way we sell Spartan is by people like you going out and doing your hunt, and you meet other people and you show people that product. And it's only in the last 2 years that Spartan's grown up enough, and I say that, grown up enough to actually start promoting the brand. Before that, it was almost word of mouth, and people took, and it's grown very effectively, but we need to do a better job at that. So Double H, our sales manager, has just taken on a new sales team in Canada, and we will get that product into more stores. We're going to set up the website so it's Canadian friendly. And that's going to happen in the next few weeks, I believe. Ollie Adams does that kind of thing. He's also our creative genius. So I think it'll be easier for Canadians to buy the products in the future, which I'm hopeful and pleased about, because we do have a good audience there, but people have always complained it's difficult to get hold of. So we're trying our best to mitigate those issues and make it easier.
Yeah, and I think the timing couldn't be better as far as, you know, the political situation. And you and I spoke a little bit yesterday about this, you know, trade wars, and people want to get, especially in Canada, you know, we're kind of held hostage to this whole trade situation. And I know a few brands in the hunting space that are investing in distribution infrastructure in Canada, and I think it's going to pay off. Like when you look, you've been to Canada, like you said, many times, and when you look at the dynamic of what our hunters and the demographic of our hunters look like here, especially in British Columbia and Alberta, Spike Camp is open to any hunter anywhere, you know, in the world, but the majority of our platform are mountain hunters. And when you and I chatted, you know, about a month ago, when you and I were both traveling and we talked on the phone for quite a while, we talked about that. And, you know, virtually almost every single member of our platform carries a rifle in the mountains, and that's because they live in Western Canada. And this should be the place where your products would, you know, have the best fit. So I'm really excited to hear that. I know our members will be happy to hear that too, because we've got so many things against us in Canada, between foreign currency exchange rates and our government and the duties and things that they charge us. And if it happens to go through the US, now God knows what's going to happen next, right?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an unpredictable ship at the moment, and I think what the world now needs is a bit of stability. But we could talk a long time on that one.
Yeah, different
you know,
podcast.
Playground antics, really, and it just creates a lot of uncertainty. But yeah, we're trying to do our best on that. And you're right. I mean, Spartan's DNA is very much the mountain hunter. It's we're now, as of probably 18 months ago, coming out of that, not coming out that stable, but we've got more horses in the stable. So
right,
if you're a plains game hunter, if you're sort of Southeast America, or if you're in mainland Europe outside of the Alps, we've definitely got tools for you now. That's been a big challenge for us, because we made products, but we were pretty much emulating what other people did. And I've got zero interest in doing something that's already done perfectly well. But 2 years ago, I was up in the Arctic hunting capercaillie, and for your listeners, you probably do know what they are, but they're like a giant grouse. They're the biggest in the grouse family, I believe, a bit like a turkey. And I was up in the Arctic with a very good friend who is a journalist in Sweden in the hunting industry, but he's also a long-range shooting specialist, and he's very good at what he does. And he'd been on at me for years. If I'd been any good at this, I should have listened to him years ago. And he said, Rob, what I need is a mobile bipod, a really fast, adaptable bipod that I can do everything from prone to seated. And it needs to be flexible. Could you not make a rubber body bipod? And I made rubber sort of rubber joints and things. It never worked. But then we were up there, and it got so freaking cold. You know, when the snow gets dusty, it turns into powder, and you think, oh, this is a bit ugly now. And the rifle broke, the snow machine we had some issues with it. Things started getting ugly, and we had a rule that if it got to below -25 centigrade, we stopped playing and went back to his cabin. Well, it got down to about it was colder than that. And I got frost damaged eyeball and frost nipped fingers. And anyway, we got back in, and I said, well, this is the time now. Let's work on this product. And we ended up using a silicon bodied We made a silicon body bipod, not rubber, because rubber's temperature sensitive, splits or gets too stiff. The silicon's much better at managing temperatures. And we put two relatively long extendable legs on this product. That thing, we launched it, as I say, October 20, what are we now, 25, 23. Yeah, so it's not old. It's our hottest selling product, Chuck. And that is very much aimed at sort of deer management, quick and dirty predator shooting. And you've got a Kiwi that's up in Canada, Marcel. So he spends half his time in New Zealand, then he guides in your neck of the woods. And he will not go anywhere without that those Springboks. We call them the chopsticks of death. But basically, it's a very fast, adaptable tool. Now, it's not a precision tool. It's something that it's going to provide you a platform when you absolutely need it. And I was on the phone to a very good journalist who I respect in the States the other day, and he said, I've got to tell you, Rob, he said, that Springbok is the best support system I've ever used. And I like that word, support system, because we're coming away from tripods, quads and bipods. It's a support system. And the whole ethos of Spartan is everything is modular. It's Lego, Meccano, whatever you grew up with, but it's basically you can build a support system that best serves your needs. Because the way you hunt, Chuck, the way I hunt, the environments are all different. So we're not dictating, right? So support systems aren't fluid, but we made this modular system as fluid as it can be to best serve your needs. And what I'm really excited about now is more and more rifle brands are now fitting these adapters. You know, that's the gateway. Basically, if you get that little adapter fitted in your rifle, there are so many different options I can talk about that will provide you support systems in various environments. But above and beyond the Javelin bipod, even the Javelin Light, the little simplest thing, it'll do the job. You know, it's far better than not having any support whatsoever. And I can't believe, even to this day, that people will spend a lot of money on a rifle, spend a lot of money on optics, and they won't worry about the soft body tissue, sort of leaving that bit and thinking, well, I can use my pack. And yeah, of course you can use your pack, but you can't lock your rifle in on a pack. You're going to float forwards and float backwards. And there's something that really, I struggle with that. And you'll relate to what I'm about to say. Invariably, when you're hunting in the mountains, you're either pointing uphill or pointing downhill. And I've even had people hang on to my feet before to stop me slipping over an edge to take a shot. Well, if your rifle is on the pack, right, you've got no purchase on that rifle whatsoever. So the whole thing is a very unstable platform. So I say to people, you don't have to buy our bipod. There's plenty of good bipods out, but make sure you have a bipod in your inventory if you want to be a successful hunter. Because even if you're an amazing shot, I don't care what you say, you're going to be a better one with support, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make a lot of good points, Rob. And just thinking about the modular adaptability, I've got the Hoplite that you sent me, and I've got my little mini spotter mounted on the top of it. And the cool thing, you know, when I got all this stuff from you, I was so excited. It was like a kid in Christmas, and I started playing around with it. And I mean, the nice thing is, it's not just, there's so many good things about the system. It's adaptable, and you can do all kinds of different things. I've got the mounts now on my my binos as well. I think I introduced you to my friend Mike Drury from Alpine Riflecraft from Calgary. Remember,
he's now fitting. Yeah, he's Spartan ready. I mean, what a great little rifle! I love these stories. Yeah, number
one off the production line from Mike is sitting in my safe. I'm doing load development on it as we speak. And it's everything's Spartan ready. All my guns now, I've had the adapters on them for a long time. But the other thing too, what I like about it is a lot of gear companies like to reinvent themselves, and this is just traditional, marketing. Like, for example, backpack companies. Backpack companies will make a nice backpack, and everybody goes out and buys the backpack. It's awesome. You get this great state-of-the-art, brand new, shiny backpack. Next year, version 2.0 comes out, and now you got to sell that backpack, and then you got to buy the new one. The cool thing I like about what you guys are doing is you can just add stuff to the system, and you can, you're bringing on new adapters for other people's platforms like Arca Rails and Pick Rails, and you even do work with other companies that are in your space, like Ozzyok, for example. There you go. Is another classic example. I'm a strong believer, if someone has a good idea, why shouldn't you use it, right?
Well,
if you can, right?
Totally agree, and I think that's that a lot of small companies like Spartan have that ethos. At my age, I want to build a great company like other people do, but if I was 30, we might have a very different conversation now. But at 61, I want to build great products, and I can honestly say this with confidence: the amount of money that people spend on our gear to the amount of money we put into manufacturing. Sure. They're getting a lot of product for their money. There's a lot of companies that put that into advertising and promotion and telling you how cool they are. And I'm not saying Spartan's the coolest brand out there. That's not what I'm about. But getting back to what you say is I partner with good brands because I'm all into getting a great support system for you and people like Chuck out there. Right. And for myself. And I'm using it first and foremost from the Arctic to the desert. So I know what I'm doing on that front. I certainly don't know what I'm doing on lots of other fronts. But when it comes to like making a holster for our gear, we used to do that. But there's companies out there that do it better. So FHF, for example, Red Kettle, those companies make better stuff than we do. So let them have that turf. Let them enjoy that presence. And actually, I think the listeners, the audience, the people that are using it really appreciate that honesty and the fact that we're not trying to conquer the world. We don't want it. You've got rifle brands out there. I won't name any, but they want to do optics. They want to do support systems. They want to do everything. They want to provide you your kitchen knives. Sorry, no, I'll buy a good rifle from Seiko, from Blaser, from Weatherby or whatever. I want that rifle. If I want my optics, I'm going to go to Swaro or Zeiss or somebody else or Loophole and buy optics. It's like I will never buy boots from a clothing manufacturer. I want to buy boots from an Italian guy that's been making boots for 200 freaking years. Because guess what? He's going to know more than the clothing manufacturers. And I'll buy my packs from Kifaru or Initial Ascent or somebody like that because they know what they're doing and they're freaking good at it. So I stick to what I do. And what's happened in the last 2 years is now the military side. We've got a defense. Spartan Operations is looking after defense. It's only looking after little units around the world at the moment, but that fungus will grow because we're working at the Premier League and it filters down. And some of the products we're developing for those guys, like that little hoplite you've got, the DNA to that, believe it or not, was from a military application. So we had a sniper unit in mainland Europe that wanted a tripod for 50 cals and 338s. And they wanted the tripod to last 5,000 rounds. After it done 5,000 rounds, they considered it done its job, retire it off, it's done and dusted. And I said, we don't have anything that will cope with a 50 cal 338. And they said, well, you're gearing, design us one. So I did. Over a couple of bottles of Bordeaux with a mate, right, over a restaurant, and we smashed it out the park. I'm really proud of that design. But it was like the hoplite, but it's 3 times bigger. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, this is our opportunity to make a tripod that's not a camera tripod. This is a tripod for shooting off, first and foremost. So why don't we put the real estate into the body of the tripod as opposed to on the top, right? Keep the gravity low. So, bang, that was the Hercules. Got a contract, sold a few hundred of those, continued to sell them to the military. It's a great freaking bipod, tripod. Would I take it hunting? No, I wouldn't because it's too heavy. Could I abseil off it? Yes, I can, and I've done it. Not that I'd say that, but it's built to take 110 kilos, not 30 pounds of camera. And so I liked it so much, I thought, I need one of these for the mountains. But I need a little light one. So that was the birth of the hoplite. So we launched the hoplite. That's been very, very successful. Well, I just come back from New Zealand. What the guys in New Zealand were doing, they were taking the Springbok legs, which is our lightest long leg, put it on the Hoplite tripod and turn it into a full-blown tripod that weighs a pound. And I thought, oh, yeah. So just what you said, they'd used the Lego in a different way that we'd used it. And he said, you really should be offering this because this is a formidable tool that weighs a pound, 500 grams, that I can now do everything off. So that when you go to the website, you'll see Hoplite and it'll offer these legs as a bundle. One day we might do it as a package, but you know, it gives the user that opportunity. But having that control module in the body of the tripod is freaking awesome. And shooting off 3 legs, if you get the opportunity, and you don't always. The stag I took in New Zealand, I was at a precarious angle, couldn't even get behind the rifle, I had to sit adjacent to it. I used that little Hoplite to great effect on my stag at, I think it was 260 or 280 yards. It wasn't a massive shot, but it was long enough to get it wrong. I've got them wrong at 30 yards in the past. But having that support was the difference between me enjoying taking that shot, and this is really important, and me struggling to take that shot, because I could take that shot with the confidence, and things can still go wrong, that I thought, I've got everything mapped out now. I've got my rifle here. I've worked a long time for that moment. Why make it harder for yourself?
Exactly.
You know, so the Hoplite was the difference between having that in that thing. I could do this right, or I could struggle with my pack, and the results speak for themselves. So big fan of that little tool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with it. The other thing I want to mention too is the fact that you can swap out legs and do things like that. Is also a very cool feature. Like in my case, you also sent the your trekking poles, which look to me like they're impressive. They're super light and they look bulletproof. I haven't had a chance to play with them yet, but like for example, for a sheep hunting setup with my little Swaro spotter, I'll probably swap out these legs, and I'll put 2 legs on. When we get off the plane, I'll put 2 legs onto the Hoplite, and I'll stick it in my pack compressed. And then I like to hike with 1 trekking pole when I'm like day to day. And then to deploy it, I just got to spin the handle off the end of the trekking pole and screw it on, and then boom. And I would guess that I haven't tried it yet, but it's probably going to be similar in time from the time I deploy the tripod and pop the magnetic mount onto the top as it would be like if I was running an Arca rail or something with a traditional tripod and trying to monkey around with it. And then I've got that ability to, use 1 tripod or 1 walk trekking pole or 2 or whatever when I'm hiking too. So yeah, and it's cool. And then you can pop the I don't have to play around with it, but you can pull this out and put someone else's piece in there. It's like just brilliant engineering. I was going to ask you about like the design. You talked about in the case of your friend in the military application, sitting with a couple of bottles of wine and coming up with a design. Do you have give us a little inside look on the engineering and design side of Spartan? Like, how does that look? Is it you and a team?
I used to be quite prevalent not artist, but I'd paint a lot and did a couple of exhibitions. So I'm quite handy with a pen, and I don't do the graphic stuff. I draw everything by hand. And now we're working very closely with a great company in Denmark for doing the military design stuff. And we're manufacturing we will be manufacturing more and more in Denmark as well. But we use American manufacturers, Chinese manufacturers, Taiwanese manufacturers. We even used UK manufacturers. The problem is we couldn't get the quality in the UK. It's a sad thing to say. And I struggled in the States as well, because I think we've lost those skill sets over here. But what I will say about all of the factories we use, they're aviation grade. So if they can make turbine parts, they can certainly do this. And if you look at the products, you can see they're absolutely beautifully put together. But I'll do all the sort of critical design, the IP, making sure we've got it right. And then there's a hideous amount of time wasted because I don't get it right straight away, invariably, because I'm human to make mistakes. To actually turn that product from an idea concept into a prototype until we get it right. And that's probably one of our biggest budget spends. a lot of companies will release products and they're not really right. And we've got it wrong. You know, I'm not saying we were saintly on that front, but pretty much by the time we get stuff out, we've really smashed that thing to bits to test it to make sure it holds up in the right environments. Quad sticks will be the perfect analogy there. We've been playing around with quad sticks for 8 years. And it's, again, as I said before, we were making them and they were beautifully made, but we weren't offering anything different to any other quad stick manufacturer. Now, in Canada, in North America, quad sticks aren't really a thing yet. They will be. In Europe, 15 years ago, I've had the same conversation. Now in Europe and the UK, pretty much every lowland hunter will have a set of quads. And there's a good reason why that is. It's not something I take to the mountains. So for you guys in BC, I'd stick to tripods and bipods. But if you're doing anything, so if you're going to Africa or you're doing anything subalpine, quads absolutely have a place because you've got 2 points of contact on the ground and 2 points of contact on the rifle. And your leg becomes a third point of contact. So you can really make a mobile shooting bench. The problem with them, and it's a love-hate relationship with me, is I find them very awkward to manhandle. And in a fast environment, they're just they are a nightmare. You've got to play with them for a long time to get comfortable. So what we did, we never launched the quad systems we made until we'd made the Springbok, the silicon bodied bipod. And then I was with a friend on the range and he said, well, hang on a minute, Gearing. He said, why don't we add 3 more silicon bodies, put 2 on the ground and 1 on the back, have a cradle on the back, use the Magnus switch system in the front and make a quad system. My God, this thing is freaking unbelievably cool, right? Because you can imagine you've got 4 silicon bodies all moving and giving you that adjustability and mobility. And again, I can say it without being cocky because it wasn't my idea, it's my friend's. But because you're attached with the magnetic system at the front, you can support the whole system from the back. You don't even need to move any more than hold the rifle at the back and move the rear leg. And it's almost got a life of its own. But you can use this system for pretty much prone shooting, right up to standing shots as a quad, but also because it's silly, you can push the rear support system back and turn it into a giant bipod. Now that is incredible. So it gives you so much. So if you're going hunting in Africa for buffalo or antelope, or you're doing any deer hunting in wooded areas, this thing absolutely comes into its own. So we launched them last year. They've been very successful. And now at SHOT Show, we launched the Springbok tripod. So that's a whole family of products there now that are not hideously expensive because we're not cutting a lot of metal. We're using silicon. So you've got the Springbok bipod, the Springbok tripod, and the Springbok quad. You don't need all of them. Depending on which environment you are, one of those tools will really serve its purpose very well. So hugely excited about that family. And again, with the Spartan Ready rifle, you can use them all straight away.
Yeah, that's cool. I experienced the a quad system last year. I was in South Africa for the first time, and when I got to the lodge and went out to the range, and I rented a gun, so we did some practice with the rifle, and my PH basically said, "Would you want to use these old wooden shooting sticks? You know, the typical leather-bound shooting sticks, tripod style at the front, or do you want to try this new system?" And it wasn't your brand, but it was one with you just pull the legs apart, set it up, and it had like a little holster area for the rifle. And I tried it, and I was like, "Wow, you know, this is pretty cool. You can almost." You know, you're resting the entire gun, like you say, front and back. And I found it worked really well. It was a little clunky, but the beauty of this trip was, you know, you have the PH who's carrying it for you and deploying it, and then you stand up and boom. Once we shot a couple of animals, it got a lot quicker, and I could see that. I saw some video on your system. I think you did a couple of them, and it looks pretty cool. Looks pretty interesting. Like you said, probably not something we're going to use much here, but boy, in Africa,
Yeah,
Would it be
in
slow?
Africa, or if you were coming to you, if you're going roe hunting in the UK or fallow hunting, or you go to Germany for stags or boar,
Hmm.
then it's definitely got a place. And I'd say its big advantage over current quad systems out there is the fact it's so flexible and fast to use, as
Hmm.
opposed to you'll understand what I'm going to say. When your PH has set that system up, you're pretty much regulated to sort of a given window. If that
Yeah.
window changes to a different opportunity window,
Hmm.
you've got to manhandle the whole thing and move it. Now, they can be pretty good, but with
Regroup. Yeah.
ours, it's very easy to do that, and almost instinctively so because of the silicon. So I think Spartan will gain a reputation for not just being a mountain hunting specialist in the next couple of years. I'd like to think so, because when we release stuff, I put a lot of homework into it, and a lot of good people have put a lot of good homework in, and thought there's a place for that.
Hmm.
Where we fail, Chuck, and this is why it's so important to do these Instagrams and podcasts and things, is we don't necessarily explain the products as well as we could. So we're getting better on that, and Ollie's doing a great job at work now, because he's got a very creative mind, and say, well, if I'm a whitetail hunter or I'm a sheep hunter or a goat hunter, these are the tools that probably would best serve you. There's always exceptions to that, but giving people a doorway to explain their type of hunting to them, and having people with that kind of knowledge to be able to explain that. So I don't confess to be a sheep hunter, right? Don't know anything about sheep. So basically, we get specialists in. We know good people out there that know that game. So, well, what would you use that know our product, and they can help guide us? So you've got like
Hmm.
influencers, ambassadors, whatever you want to call them, but people that are known and respected, that will be on the website, and that's the products they use for that type of environment. And that gives the customer confidence to know he or she's getting the right tools for the job. And I think that's
Sure.
hugely important. And we haven't, up until now, been doing that very well, but that's getting better.
Yeah, you're starting to see your name out there in a lot of places. One question I had, Rob. So, a lot of companies, well, not a lot, but there are some companies in the hunting space that will send their products out in mass form. I'm not going to name names, but there's a couple of backpacks. I'll refer to that again. Backpack companies that they'll build a prototype without real testing, and then submerge it into the market. With send 100 of them out to 100 different people to test, and then get the feedback from them, and then make changes. How does testing work with you guys? Like,
Yeah,
what's
we
the
do.
protocol for that?
We do the same thing. We've probably got about
Okay.
20 people that are out there living it and killing it and doing it on
Yeah.
a regular basis that we'll call upon. And we'll do the same for the military guys as well, because that's a different DNA. And the products don't get the seal of approval until they've gone out and spent a lot of time with these people, and they're really,
Sure.
you can always do things better, right? But there's a, you think, well, okay, are we ready? Is this good? Well, we could do this and this. And we're probably too much self-critical, I would say. We've held
Mhm.
things up for minor changes that people probably wouldn't even notice or observe, which isn't probably the most sensible thing to do. But long term, I think people really value that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost them. All right. Okay. While we're waiting for
Better on
Rob.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there
Have
you
you?
go. You're
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Yeah, I'm looking at the
Just tech.
Javelin. Is basically an evolution product. It's reached its level of maturity now, where I'd say I'd struggle to do anything different with that.
Sure.
It's a great tool, and it's happened because people like you come back and say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 30,000 field testers out there, I think you're stupid if you don't listen to them. And yet a lot of companies are very arrogant when it comes to the actual end user, and they think, well, we know best. Well, no, you don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chuck might know much more about sheep hunting than we do. So let's listen to Chuck. And if you get 5 or 6 people telling you they want something, you should probably listen to them. We certainly do.
Yeah, and I think you're right. A lot of companies will refuse to change because of, in some cases, pride and a lot of emotional attachment to the product that they designed. But at the end of the day, you can't buy your own products and keep yourself in business, right? So,
Arrogance
um,
kills. And I think if you've got a good respect and reputation in the industry and you listen to people, that shows and that comes through in the product development. Um, and
yeah.
the Spartan family now, I'm very proud of where it is right now. And as I say, it's not Rob Gearing, it's a whole
Mhm.
team of great people with good minds, infinitely better mind, sort of coming to the table. And it can be quite fractious because people
Mhm.
have their, even in the team, people say, well, we need this. No, we don't. Yes, we need that bit. And so, but that's evolution, isn't it? That's how things get better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you've done, I've been dealing with some of the folks on your team, and a great business sort of theory and principle to run by is to, surround yourself with the best people you can surround yourself with expertise and what you want, to be an expert in, and just support them and let them make you look good and make your product look good, or your business,
Well,
or whatever it is, right? And that's the
uh,
real secret.
ride the waves. There's people then at Spartan that are infinitely more capable than me. I know what my skill set is, and it's a very narrow one. And I like the cold face. I like the front end. I like engaging with people. I'm pretty passionate about what I want to see a product do. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of mechanics behind that, and it rolls off the tongue. So, I can do this, this, and this. Well, without the Ollies, without the Maxes, without the double H's, and the Joes and the people at Spartan,
Hmm.
that won't happen. That won't turn into reality. We're a small team, but we're very lucky who we've got. I mean, we're small. Our shareholders are basically most of them are wealthy Americans and some wealthy Europeans, and we're their football team. What a
There you
great
go.
place to be. So they let us sort of engage, they let us do our stuff, and they keep the ship steered in the right direction. If they think I'm going off on one, they'll go, Gearing, what are we doing this for?
Yeah,
and
for
um,
sure.
and basically the operations director now, a guy called John Tumulty, invested in the company from the outset. And he said, well, this is my lunch. This is less than my lunch, this bipod. Why wouldn't I take it to the mountains? And he's an avid hunter himself, and he's very good at it. And he retired 10 years ago, and he said he's now running Spartan. He's the operations director. Now, to
Wow.
have somebody with his background, that guy is a mechanical engineer. He's got degrees coming out. He's a bright guy, and he's also a user. So he's one of these rarely very intelligent people that you can have an adult conversation with, right, and still have a laugh. So I think having JT running the ship as an operations director has been transformational for Spartan, in the fact that he's helping us grow up and do things the right way. I'm the mad bald old inventor that runs around the planet doing these crazy things and having a jolly good time doing it and helping promote the brand, but I'm not necessarily the best general manager. So to have this kind of thing, I think you're going to see a lot of improvements in Spartan because of that. And that's really he's the segue to getting the product into Canada, because it's what we sell more product in New Zealand than we do in Canada. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Population of
Well,
4 or 5 million. Yeah,
well, and it's funny because if you look at that, I've hunted New Zealand as well, and I know you just spent, what was it, 2 months there, a month or something?
month. Yeah,
A month,
yeah.
yeah. And you obviously have a passion for it and love it, but um, it's mountainous terrain, and the applications are very similar. And I guess that was, back to the structure of Spartan. That's one of the things that I see, and I'm sure everybody that follows you sees, is like, you do a great job of getting out into the shows and traveling the world and doing the promotions, and that is like old school hardcore, in your face promotion and sales. How many days a year do you travel? Do you count?
Oh, yeah. I don't actually, but I'll be. I mean, last year I was probably in the country UK for 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and that's having an understanding partner. And I I'm going to sound selfish now. I'm 61. I want to be outside. I want to be doing the mountains. I want to be doing those things while the knees and hips still work well. And I'm really freaking lucky for 61. I'm sort of holding my own
For sure.
and doing pretty well. I don't pretend to be 30 or even 40. I might be a lot slower now, but I still get up there. I still do the stuff. And I'm going to keep planning these great adventures. And I think that's what Spartan's about. And I think we need to sort of install that in other people, that, you know, you can think about these things, or you can actually say, do you know what, I'm going to get off my ass and do one. And I've got some great things planned for this year. Will be the one I'm just off to the Pyrenees with Pedro. I'm meeting Pedro and Pora for a couple of days.
Right on.
And then I've got a good buddy down there, and I'll do a bit of road stalking. So I've got my motorbike. I'm going to go meet a few mates in Spain, catch up with them and do some stuff.
Right on.
But one I'm really excited about this year is Tajikistan, and we're not going for trophy animals, we're going high. So we're taking a Taurus rifle, Loophole Optics, and I'm going with Brett Voles, who's basically CEO of Taurus. He's never hunted in Asia before. He's done a lot of hunting, but so this is a newbie for him. I've been to Tajikistan once before, and it's a great place. And those kind of environments are fantastic for several reasons. Obviously, getting out there and hunting is the excuse to go, but engaging with the local people, I love.
The culture,
eating their food, the culture. It's great fun, and there's a commonality that runs through all of these people. When you get out to places where they don't have a lot, people tend to be very genuine, in my experience anyway, and quite happy with their lot. And I think that's good for us in our modern society, because it helps you recalibrate and rebalance yourself. Because, you know, I can have days and think, oh God, what's happening today? Well, we do all right. You and me do all right. You know, you've got your paper trade or whatever, but look at all your trophies behind you. You get out there and actually do it. And I'm freaking lucky to be able to say that too. So all the time the body works, I'm up for doing that as much as I'm able. And I really value that part. And I do value, as much as the shows are quite draining and hard work, I do like the engagement with the people and getting the feedback, because we get so much positive feedback, you know, and that's really rewarding for me. You know, there's a lot of people that, what do you do in business? Well, I trade or something. Well, do you actually make anything? And I was like that in aviation. I was basically a glorified scrap dealer in the aviation world, but I didn't actually bring anything to the table. To actually sort of make products, develop products that make your lives, our lives easier, is hugely rewarding for me. So I get a lot of satisfaction when we get it right, and a lot of drive to get it right.
Yeah, and you can see just, you know, in your presence online and talking with you now, that, you know, you and I have been chatting a few times. It's very much for you a passion project, just like the platform is with, you know, my son and I here building this, you know, Spike Camp community together. It's just fun. Like I look forward to finishing my day job so I can jump online and talk to people about, you know, interesting things involving the hunting space. So I can totally relate, Rob. So one thing I want to do here before I forget, we like to give things away. So we've got 2 giveaways going tonight. The first one is we've partnered up with a couple of brands. One is the local BC company called Trail Fair Foods. It's dehydrated foods, homemade, really, really good. Another BC company, everybody who's in BC knows, this is a friend of ours. It's called This Is Coffee. It's the best instant coffee for backpacking. You should check this out, Rob, with your adventures. I know coffee, This Is Coffee. You can order it online. Keep it in your backpack.
Chuck, I want to do a Spartan coffee, but I want to do a really good coffee. So maybe you should link me in with him, because I think
you got to talk to him.
Liz's Coffee could make some Spartan coffee. I'd love to do that. And again, I don't want to do the coffee. I want to go to the coffee expert. But people like buying the T-shirts, the hats, bits and pieces. Why don't we all love coffee. So have a Spartan coffee. So have a chat with him.
I will.
Yeah.
And then Wilderness Athlete. So we're going to give a little, what we call the Mountain Fuel bundle away. And Blake has already pulled the winner, Robbie Kale. Robbie, I'm going to send you this stuff. So we'll PM you after the show, and I'll send you your little package of Mountain Fuel. Thanks, buddy. All right, Rob, I know want to be respectful of your time. It's super early in the morning. We're a hunting platform, so we do want to dig into some hunting conversation a little bit. Tell us about your early days of hunting. Where did you start? Like, what was your first intro into hunting?
So we don't have public land in the UK. It's a good question. So that's what got me into climbing. So I didn't have that luxury of being able to go out and get a rifle and go hunting, just like people can in New Zealand, Canada, and the States. And that was a huge obstacle, and continues to be in the UK. So it's a bone of contention for me, because I bang on about how good public land is and how much it needs to be defended, because I'm sitting on the other side of that fence where it's private land or you don't get a chance. Well, in that brings a few problems. One is finance, right? So unless you've got a lot of money, or you're born into a family, or you're a gamekeeper, or you work on a farm or an estate, it's difficult to segue yourself into the hunting environment. I'm not impossible. We could have a long conversation about it, but it's certainly not as easy as just putting a stamp, getting some public land and going getting a permit. So that basically in the UK means everybody grows up with air rifles, and a lot of people don't migrate on from that. So they spend shitloads of money on an air gun, shit money on an optics, a 12-foot-pound air rifle, and shoot targets in their back garden. It's a generalization, which is always dangerous to say, but I'm not a million miles off. So I got into hunting with an air gun, doing rabbits and pigeons and selling rabbits to neighbours and things. And it was pocket money for me. I used to go around like churchyards and things and shoot rabbits and sort of find little places to do it. But it's how you grow up. And I always say most young men start as killers and they turn into hunters, and it takes a few years to get there. But so it wasn't a natural segue for me. My family weren't hunters. I just had a passion for it. But it wasn't until my 20s when I sort of got into a group. I went up to Scotland a couple of times, did a bit of shit, fell in love with that. I thought, I've got to do this. Got in with a local estate and basically got on like a deer management course and started managing deer. And there's a big difference between deer management and hunting. So with deer management in the UK, you don't have a lot of firearms license holders. You don't have a lot of people managing deer. So invariably, it gets you a lot of time behind the rifle actually shooting animals. So we were working I used to work on Cowdray Estate, which is East Sussex, West Sussex, and then more locally, there's a couple of estates here, and there's a lot of forestry there. So they want deer controlled. And between 8 of us, we'd shoot about 320 deer a year.
Oh, wow.
So it's a lot of deer going down. I just spoke to the guys yesterday, actually. They're up to 700 deer now. Same area, hasn't grown, but the population of the deer has got bigger.
Sure.
We lost that race, and they're just more effective at managing it. But so I got into managing fallow deer, and what I would say hunting roe. There's a big difference. So for me, roebuck, which is sort of, for your listeners, a sort of Labrador-sized deer. It's one of the true indigenous deer species in the UK. We've got 6 species over here, 3 of which are truly indigenous. I mean, red deer, roe, fallow. Well, fallow actually came over with the Romans or Mormons, but they're considered indigenous. And then we've got sika, muntjac, and Chinese water deer. So I grew up managing fallow deer. And if I never shot another fallow deer again, it wouldn't really bother me, because I've done plenty of that. But what we can do here is, if we shoot wildlife like that, it can go straight into the food chain. So it's a good resource for the estates, because every time they shoot a deer, it's money going back to the estate. And so we do everything differently from you guys. And in fact, we'd remove the green. The deer stay in their jackets, they're hung in a chiller, and they're picked up and taken off to the game dealers, and they might end up in local restaurants, they might up in supermarkets, blah blah blah. But it's a good system, but you get a lot of shot time doing that. So you make a lot of accidents on the way, mistakes on the way. You screw things up, and you learn, and you get better. And even now, I'll screw the odd shot up. It happens, and anybody that does enough will be very familiar with that. And I don't think we should run away from that issue, because it is a real one. And so,
Absolutely.
making the Spartan systems is all about giving you that stable platform. But so that was my background. But what I really love doing, and I haven't done it for some years, and that's why I'm quite excited to be going to the Pyrenees, is I haven't done roe deer hunting for years, because I'm always out of country. And if somebody said, what would you really enjoy doing right now, Gary? It's like on a May evening, going out after roebuck is really exciting.
Wow.
It's a beautiful little animal. They eat very well, and they're quite solitary. So you can find yourself some beautiful terrain, and I really, really enjoy that. And I'm taking a very good friend from Eastern Europe out after some nice roebuck in May in the UK as well. So that's exciting. With a college lecturer here, that we've got 3 colleges where they teach people how to deer hunt and gamekeepers and things. And Rod Greenwood is one of the lecturers there, and he's got some good deer patches. So he's taken a friend of mine out with me. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, that was growing up, was fallow deer, roe deer, and a little bit of red deer. Yeah.
Well, very interesting. Now we have one of the cool parts with these live streams is we get questions from the audience in the chat section. I'm not sure if you have the chat part open, but one of our members, Brecken, is asking if you could only hunt with one cartridge for the rest of your career, what would that cartridge be?
There's 2 answers to that. Right. Are we talking worldwide, or are we talking Europe?
Okay, let's do both.
Okay. I'd say for Europe, I mean, people are going to laugh at me, but I grew up with 6.5 by 55.
Ooh,
Great
good
round.
cartridge.
Yeah. Just does everything very well. I now use a 6.5 Creedmoor. That could have been a 260. It could be anything, but the Creedmoor does everything it needs. I don't think the Creedmoor's a game-changing round. The Swedes have been using them for 100 years, but it does everything I need in Europe. Maybe if I was going hunting pigs, I'd want a 308 or 7mm or something like that. Worldwide, there's 2 answers to that. I think I probably would go 7mm Rem Mag, because it's just ubiquitous and you can get it. But obviously the 28 Nosler, those kind of rounds are really another level. And if they were very readily accessible, I'd probably pick something like that. I'm not a great caliber freak or nut. I don't get too twisted on those kind of things. I actually normally speak to Joseph von Benedict about that, who's infinitely more capable than me.
For sure.
Or somebody like James Nash, and say, well, what would you use? Because those guys have far more knowledge. But 7mm Rem Mag does everything pretty well, I would say. Africa, you'd want to probably go a bit bigger. But if you had a look in my gun box now in Europe, they're all Creedmoors, just because it will do everything I need it to do across Europe.
Yeah. Oh, I can see that. 2 great calibers right there. One of our guys is asking, Clay Weber's asking, he makes a statement and a question at the same time. He says, a name for a company is very important. How did the name Spartan come about? I'm sure there's a story.
That is a good question. I don't know if you listen, Spartan history fascinates me, right? And not just about the warrior mentality, but the fact they lived a Spartan life and everything was very simple, and they didn't even have a currency, right? So you had a very simple, basic life. And I quite like this. I think the Spartan equipment emulates that. It's simple tools to do a functional job, right? The fact is the tripod breaks down, as you've said, into your trekking poles. Why take trekking poles if I've got 3 legs on my back, right? So I like that Spartan ethos. And for a few hundred years, it was very successful and worked very well. So that was really why we picked the name Spartan. It's also, they're a tough people. They were brought up in, the young boys were brought up from 7 in the agoge, however you want to call it, into a school, and basically they survived or didn't, right? And it's impressive thing. It's an impressive thing that we could all learn from again now as we become more wokey. I think get back to some reality and find out some real problems in people's lives. Yeah,
for
let's
sure.
not kick off on that one.
Wow, it's a great story for sure. Well, I just have to say, Rob, one of the things that I appreciate when when I see you on either on Instagram or someone else's shows or whatever it is you're one of these guys that, or one of these people, I should say, because there's a lot of ladies that do the same. Uh, you're very honest about your opinion and your position on things, and you like to show things as they are. And in particular, you've done some extreme hunts. I've seen some of your videos and stuff. And like I said, there's a lot of things out there that people do that are more for show. And you always look like you're so into the culture and you're into the what the locals are doing. And there was one show in particular, you know what I'm talking about. There was a ritual after you took an animal in Asia. I'd like you to talk about that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It was
So
the
Mongolia,
post-harvest. Mongolia.
Mongolia's where. So we were. If you ever get an opportunity, have you ever hunted in Asia?
Not yet, no, but I
Yeah,
am.
no,
I'm
you
on the
need to
books.
do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. So they tend to be very caring people. They tend to be very good at finding animals. They don't, in my experience, don't tend to be very good at actually stalking into them, because I think
Mhm.
a lot of them have harvested animals at the bottom of mountains that are being pushed down there just for food. So
Sure.
I've now got to the habit of, I've learned enough to say, right, if we find animals, let me do what I've got to do. But anyway, another story. We managed to successfully harvest a nice ibex, and then suddenly the local guys all come out and they're basically pumping the blood out of this ibex. They've got a little bit of vodka in the bottom and all drinking the blood, and they're crazy to get this stuff down them. And I said, well, what's the score here then, guys? And they said, in Mongolia. And there's a follow on from this story. In Mongolia, they said, we believe this is very good for our joints, right? And I thought, well, shit, I'm 61.
Joints are
Anything
getting
that can
old.
help, mate. Yeah, yeah, I'll do this. So it's turned into a bit of a habit of mine now that when I
Oh wow.
shoot something, I did in New Zealand, we pump a little bit of blood out and get it down there. Is it any good for my joints? I don't know. It might be good for collecting parasites around the world. And
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely wouldn't do it with a predator. I don't fancy trichinosis or anything like that.
No,
But
I don't
they
think so.
also on the way out had a what are they called, marmot, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
they
we do. We have them
basically,
as well.
yeah, pressure cooked. But have you ever eaten one?
No, I have
No,
not.
don't. Absolutely the most disgusting thing I've ever eaten.
Wasn't
And
on
I've
my
eaten some
list.
disgusting things. But it also in Mongolia carries the bubonic plague. So they
Oh,
lose about
there.
500 Mongolians a year eating these things. So had I
Yeah.
known that, I definitely wouldn't have partaked. But it was fascinating to watch because we're in the middle of the Gobi Desert. I mean, in the middle of the Gobi Desert, nothing there. And these guys are desperate to eat their marmot. God knows why now, having tried it, how awful it was. And what they do is they pressure cook it. So they basically heated up some stones, put the stones inside the marmot, tied its anal passage back up so it was like a football, put
Good Lord.
three holes down the side of the marmot on both sides. And then you watch this thing just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And they clearly blow up from time to time because they're getting really excited about, keep slapping you on the back. But most disgusting meat I've ever eaten. Yeah, so not to be
Oh
recommended.
man.
Mm.
Well, you are not going to believe this, but uh, my questions after I asked that question, my next question was literally, what is your favorite game meal? I don't mean to tie the two of those together, but
Yeah,
on the flip side, what do you like the most? What's your favorite meal when you're out there?
the most memorable meat that I think I've eaten is moose done well.
Oh, good
I
shit.
really enjoy moose. I also really enjoy the capercaillie, and what the Swedes tend to do with the capercaillie, because it can be very strong and gamey, but we have it
Okay.
raw on with some onion, egg, like on a piece of toast. That is freaking good. And I've done that with turkey as well in North America. Done
Okay.
turkey tartare. That was great as well. I'm into quite a lot of raw stuff if I get the opportunity.
Mhm.
But I'll eat absolutely anything. But I will always pick wild game in preference to farmed animals now, and I think there's no crap in them. They've been out there doing what they do, and other than the marmot, I'm yet to be disgusted by anything that I've stuck in my mouth that doesn't work. And one of the most impressive meats I've eaten was with Joseph von Benedict. He'd shot a 13-year-old ram, and he said, "You've got to try this." And I thought, no, I really don't. I could just imagine that would be like eating me, just open past itself. The meat was unbelievably good. And I'd say out of the UK, the best venison we get is the Sika deer. That's really up there for me. But I took it you're talking about game, not sort of dehydrated foods.
Exactly. Yeah. Game meat. Yeah, I should have phrased it a little more specifically. What was Joseph's sheep? Was it in North America?
It was a North American sheep, but I don't know which one it was. But
like
I do know.
Or something.
Yeah, it tasted really, really well. We had halibut, moose, and his ram all in one.
It might have been a Dall sheep then. It probably was. So the halibut would be from the North Coast when he was in Alaska. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Joseph's been on our show before. So I chat with him quite a bit. Him and I have. We kind of joked a little bit that him and I, when we start talking about guns, we're like two old men talking about, old calibers, because he's got a real passion for the old classic cartridges, and so do I. I was raised with them, and we have our gun safes have a lot of similarities. So I really relate to him. He's a great guy.
Really, I have a huge respect for him. He's a lovely friend, I won't go past that part of Idaho without stopping in and having dinner, because there's always something good to eat. Yeah,
no doubt. One of our members is just asking, when's your next trip to Canada to hunt? You got any plans to come over our way?
I have never hunted in Canada. That's not true, actually. I did when I was in the airline business, and we went out with, and my result was a squirrel. And we had old 303 service rifles that were given to us. It was really a boozy just trip with rifles thrown in, not really very dynamic on that front. But I've never hunted in Canada. I need to change that. I'd love to go and actually look at a wolf hunt as well. I really would be fascinated about predators. I haven't done bear or wolves, and I've been out with a wolf hunter in Idaho, and he actually shot a wolf when I was with him, but it was a damaged wolf that had a badly broken leg, and I learned a lot. But that's an education for me, so I really enjoy doing something like that. And I've got a couple of invites sort of lined up that I might do in the next year or two. But I love the idea of sitting in a remote area, just wrapped up warm, and just watching. I don't need a lot going on. It's good therapy time, and I'm very, very patient on that kind of thing. So I fully expect if I go on a wolf and you don't see a wolf, those things happen.
Sure.
But I would enjoy that. I think I'd really enjoy that.
We would enjoy it too, and we would enjoy it if you took a couple wolves out of the picture as well. We have way more wolves than we really need or want here. You talk about the sitting in silence in the wilderness and just enjoying it and resetting. Well, again, this is very relatable for everybody on this call, I'm sure. British Columbia's got so much remote, and Alberta too, but British Columbia has probably more than anywhere else, apart from Alaska, but so much remote country that sheep hunting is our jam, or mountain goat hunting, or caribou, or any of those northern species. And that's why we're here, just to get out there. It's fantastic.
But your wolf population must be decimating those when it gets out of control. And what people sort of lack of understanding is, what's the biggest killer of a wolf? It's another wolf, isn't it? Right?
It is. And there's, that is a whole series of podcasts to talk about our wolf situation in Canada. Our government in BC is doing a pretty good job. I shouldn't say the government's doing a good job, because I don't want to credit them for much, but our wildlife biologists that really care, they're the boots on the ground, and they do a very good job on keeping an eye on the population and with the limited resources that they have, they do a very good job of trying to keep that population in control. And it's definitely been a controversial thing in British Columbia over the years. I've hunted areas, and many of our members have, where 10 years ago you didn't see an elk in a valley, and now you can go back to those same valleys after some proper game or predator control programs, and we're starting to see the populations rebound. But yeah, they do a lot of damage to a population, and yeah, we would like you to come and hunt them.
No,
Rob,
that's good.
Yeah, get over here.
I floated Frank Church, Salmon River, on an elk hunt. We didn't see an elk, and I chatted some old local guys who've been hunting that area for 20 years, and they said this place used to be full of elk, and the wolves have just decimated. It was like it was an amazing trip. It didn't deter me. Had I known I wasn't going to see something, I thought, but I went with some great guys. We floated a beautiful country. I'd go back again tomorrow. But yeah, it was quite sad to see nothing. There was really nothing, and we would have seen, thousands of kilometers of ground there.
Oh,
so they can do some damage.
They can. We got another really good question here. For your international hunts on bringing trophies back to the UK, is it difficult to import them into the UK? Do you have challenges with that?
No, we did, because our dear old government, what was his name, Boris's wife, basically tried to stop imports of trophies, which really freaking triggered me. I'm not really a trophy hunter per se, and I don't tend to bring trophies back because I haven't got anywhere to stick them. I live in a small house. But I've got a few really good ones in our Spartan office, but nothing remarkable. But yes, it's a very good question. You can bring them back quite easily now, but they did try and stop it a year or two ago. And actually the House of Lords banned that and said, no, stop this. There's a lot of people that earn their income from trophy hunting. Trophy is just a bad word. Right, it's a memory on a wall, and I think it's not a bad word, but it's misconceived. And I have this argument a lot with people. I say, trophy, people think you shoot a trophy and the meat gets wasted and things. And I make a big effort now, if I go to Africa or something, to video. Like if I shot a buffalo, for example, I video it. I get the tongue and the testicles to eat. Everything else gets used by the local community, right? The only thing that was left when that buffalo was all processed was the green on the ground, and they'd have probably taken that and used it as fertilizer. I don't know, but every single body part was taken. Now we can't judge those people because we are far more wasteful than those people ever would be. And I had a really interesting conversation when I was coming out of Namibia with 3 British ladies, and they said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I've been hunting." And she said, "Well," our conversation stops then. And I said, well, that's the kind of answer I'd expect out of somebody from southern UK that's not educated. Would you give me 25 minutes to talk you through the process of what we do? And I did. And at the end, she turned around and said, well, we've been living off oryx all week. And I said, well, I rest my case. They didn't come into the thing and die. Somebody shot them. But you think the stupidity of it all. But I also think us as a sort of clan, a hunting clan, need to just be a little bit more proactive and say, trophy, call it a memory on a wall. Everything you've got behind you there, Chuck, you will remember every detail about those animals. That is just, and you'll walk past those and it'll just put a smile on your face and think that was a hard day or that was an easy day on this. But it's, and I always say, you get kids out there to do this kind of thing. It's great. And computer games are one thing. You take them on their first hunt, they are never, ever going to forget that. They're never going to. I've taken 2 vegans out hunting that I've had interesting debates with, and at the end of the day, they turn around and say, well, I might not want to pull the trigger, but I understand this a lot better now. My missus is French. She was quite anti-hunting when I first met her 15 years ago. She now turns it on her head and says, I feel a bit of a hypocrite eating meat if I didn't hunt it. She doesn't eat meat much, but She said,
Sure.
now I feel like buying it from the supermarket. I'm cheating, and I won't let her, because she's so into her animals. If she screwed it up, she would never forgive herself. So there's people that I think probably shouldn't, right? Because it's going to upset them so much. Because I always say to people, if you shoot enough animals, you have to allow for a percentage that are not going to die. Well, it just happens. But compared to intensive farming, I think what we're doing is far less. I'm very comfortable in my skin saying to people I hunt. I actually enjoy the debates immensely now.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think our image can be portrayed, and I think there's an honest effort coming from the hunting community now. At least we see it here in North America, more so than we used to. A better image being portrayed. And I always like to tell people, the memories are on the wall. The trophy's actually in the freezer.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's where that's where the win is,
yeah.
for a healthy family and, great food. And I mean, it is so much different. I
Yeah.
had an interesting experience with a very famous rock star, Canadian rock star. Last year happened to be getting. I got on the plane flying over to Europe for work, and I flew to Toronto, and this this celebrity happened to sit beside me on the plane, and he's very much a well, he's a vegan for one, and he was just a different view of, I guess, a different opinion on harvest of animals, etc. But I spent 5 hours on the plane with them, and by the time we were about to land in Toronto, he had actually spent 20 minutes holding my phone, going through all my pictures of my adventures and asking me questions. And he said to me at the end of that flight, he said, I have a much better understanding of what hunting's all about. I still won't eat meat, but I have a completely new level of respect for hunters. You aren't just a bunch of fat guys walking around the forest blowing stuff up with orange jackets on. And then I took him for dinner in the big lounge at the Toronto airport, and it was really interesting. It was just an interesting conversation. So you can win them over. Takes a while,
but what you've said, but that's the magic spot. It takes a while. We all become 30-second experts on things, and I'm as guilty. You read something 30 seconds and you think, oh, that's not right, but it's how people portray things, right? And I'd say we wouldn't be on the planet today if it wasn't for us eating animals. It's just part of our DNA. So we have to come away from this ridiculous argument that it's cruel. It's just life is cruel, right? And actually, I always say to people, I think what they've done in South Africa is freaking marvelous. It's not necessarily my thing, but it's basically a process for eating great meat, for hunting meat. It's a brilliant business model. It employs a lot of people within that community, and they've done a fantastic job. There's now more wildlife in South Africa than there ever was, right? So look at the positives that come away from that. Or you could turn the whole thing into a freaking beef and dairy farm. What would you rather be? I'd rather be an eland walking around doing what elands do than having my nipples suckled every day and having massive great tits and producing that. It's just, come on, people, let's get back into reality. Supermarkets, I think, are a contraceptive between humans and their food and where it comes from. And supermarkets are guilty of a huge problem that we've created today. I used to grow up selling rabbits to my neighbours, right? If I went round to my neighbours here now and said, "Do you want to buy rabbits?" they'd look at me in shock and horror. Yeah. So in a few generations, it's changed so freaking much, and we've allowed it to do that. And we've now got like almond milk and soya milk and things. God, people, if you looked at the
you ever milk an almond?
Yeah, but I've got a mate that cleans the factories out, and he says, I wouldn't touch that stuff if you paid me. It eats the processed food. I'm convinced that half the reason there's so much cancers now is sugars and processed, these things that we're just not meant to dietary take in are causing untold problems. That and the pharmacy industry pumping us with drugs. I don't take any medication, and long may that continue. But I do eat well. And I don't drink stupid amounts of alcohol. I like a glass of wine or a beer now and again, but I'm not crazy about it. But, you know.
Well, you got to sit down with a couple bottles of wine to design a new piece of equipment, right? You got to.
Yeah. But the creative juices would definitely
the creative
flow that
juices.
night. Yeah. But
hey, Rob.
It's yeah.
I was just going to say, got a really nice bipod here. Maybe while Blake pulls the winner, you could tell us a little bit about the Javelin Pro Hunt TAC bipod, because we're going to give it away.
So the Javelin Pro Hunt TAC bipod is basically the ethos of what Spartan was born on. And that is the bipod that will stay under your bino caddy or in your pocket, and you just pop it on when you need it. And moreover, it's not there when you don't, getting in the way. And it's a fantastic hunting tool because you can orbit and you can rotate. So you can basically cant that bipod over. So it's very much designed for the mountain hunter, because I always say, when you're hunting in the mountains, it's not flat. So you need to be able to get that rifle level to make that shot. And you also can follow targets on it. So that it's something that absolutely fits the box and does the job. And read the reviews. People love them.
Yeah, I haven't. I have not played with it. So this one's really light too. 8.3. Oh, standard is 7.6 ounces, and I think that's what this one is a standard.
Yeah, and you can, like all of those things, the legs, the modules. It's a module. It's a module with legs,
change it out.
Just like hoplite. So you could put your hoplite legs on that bike.
Oh yeah,
you can do whatever you want to make that better work, it to do its job.
All right. Well, we have a winner. Let's see here. Scott Reedy. Scotty, you are the winner, buddy. I know Scott, and I know the town he lives in, so I will deliver that one personally in the next.
Well, maybe when Scotty goes out and harvests something, he can send us all a picture with his bipod.
He will. He will. Well, my friend, I can't thank you enough for so many things. First of all, your support to Spike Camp. Thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you the first time, and we really appreciate it. We're going to do everything we can to make sure the Spartan products get promoted and put in the hands of all these mountain hunters. And thank you for getting up at 3:00 in the morning UK time to join us for this chat. The members certainly appreciate it. A little bit of housekeeping. Anything you want to add towards the end, Rob? Any advice for people out there?
I don't, just keep doing what you love doing and do it with pride, and try and get a vegan out now and again, just to educate. Your story on the plane, I've got several stories like that too, and I think that's so important to make people better understand what we do and it's not a sport, it's a passion, it's a way of life. And it's something that we've been doing ever since we've been on the planet, so I don't intend stopping now.
Yeah, well said. All right, just a couple quick things here, folks, before we shut the show down. Just a reminder, we've got some really cool stuff in the monthly rewards program. Our buddy Tanner and Lewis from Frontiersman Gear, handmade rifle sling.
Lads.
Very good lads. And handmade bison leather wallet. Those are going to be drawn at the end of the month. So engage on the platform, get your tickets or get your entries in for that. And also, just a reminder, one of our good buddies, member Shane Pallister, Ram Hunter Pallister, everybody knows him. There's a fundraiser on Friday, April 25th in Fort St. John to try to raise some money to help Shane with his much needed medical care for his battle that he's fighting with cancer. So there's going to be a live and silent auction. Information's on the platform. Details can be found on Instagram and socials. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. If you got anything you want to donate for the fundraiser, we're sending a couple little things up there for him and trying to help get some product up there. So let's do your part and help a brother who needs us.
Are we throwing in a bipod there, Chuck, to help him out?
I haven't thrown any of your stuff in, but I certainly could.
I think it would be nice. It's just sounds like he's a popular guy in not a very popular place. So if we can play our part, that's great. But anyway. you
Yeah.
know what to do. Yeah.
I'll be sending him something for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Be safe. And Rob, thanks. We'll be in touch, buddy. Keep us posted.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Take care.